excited about the next presentation personally. It is from a couple of Dyknow customers, and is a topic that we're super excited about, and the core of what we're trying to share with the audience today. We're excited to bring Nikki Allman, District Technology Integration Specialist, and Chuck Holland, Director of Instructional Technology at Richland School District 2 in South Carolina. We've had several conversations with them over the last year, and their setup and structure regarding technology coaching is very intentional, very strategic, and just in listening and talking with Chuck, I have learned so much about technology coaching. And to be honest with you, it was a big reason in talking with him with why we're doing this today and the gap that we had been hearing in the market. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Nikki and Chuck for Coaching the Coaches. And there's my doorbell.
Hi, everybody. Hey, everybody. Thanks. This is an interesting way to do a conference. I've never done an online virtual conference. So this is exciting that so many people were able to participate. It really helps that almost all of us are at home right now. So it does. Like you were saying, like Brett was saying, we are in Columbia, South Carolina, and things are extremely interesting here, as they are everywhere right now. As we talk about today's session, we will be bringing in lessons learned from this past week with all of the changes, because it plays in nicely with the topic that we have. So hopefully we will give you the information you need. And so I'm gonna let Nikki go ahead and start things off here.
Yeah, so hopefully everybody can kind of see my screen there. Coaching the Coaches, that's what we are going to have the opportunity to talk about, how we provide, and I liked Brett's word, intentional support for our TLCs. Let's get started. You ready, Chuck?
I'm ready. Never. All right.
All right.
Go ahead, Nikki.
What makes a good coach? One of these, we always ask our TLCs when we first kind of start out with the support with them, especially our new ones, what makes a good coach? So if you're able to kind of go on, I don't have the ability to see, Chuck, what they're going to be saying, so you'll have to kind of let me know what you're seeing, what we think makes a good coach.
Yeah. Tiara, if you can help with this, if there's a way to show the comments, we'd love to have them put in the ideas they think make a great coach. If not, that's okay. We can adjust. So
I'll ask that everyone put their comments in the Q&A, and I'll just go ahead and share those out as they come in.
Right. Great. And just for clarification, Nick, you mentioned our TLCs. Our TLCs are our technology and learning coaches, and they are the ones who we work with directly and stuff. But we will refer to them throughout this as TLCs.
Yeah, I should have realized that not everybody knows that little acronym specific to Richland too.
It's education. We have so many acronyms.
Chuck and Nikki, if you click on the Q&A, you'll be able to see answers that people are seeing in the answered portion.
There we go. Yes, approachable, absolutely. Good listener to needs. That's something that we definitely work with our TLCs too, to how to be an active listener, listening to understand. Whoop, that was too fast. Sorry about that. If you could see my screen still. Open-mindedness, great listening skills. Listening.
Content knowledge.
Yes. There was one that had provides expertise while never making it about them. Absolutely. And that's the hard part, that when we work with our coaches, and we'll get into more detail, but that whole coaching process, it's not what I did in the classroom. It's coaching the teachers in order to make the decisions themselves, asking those right questions and that.
Okay.
Instead of overriding. I think Stacy mentioned that one, integrating the teacher style and getting them. So that's good.
Okay. Well, I think it's everything you all said about what makes a good coach were really most of the same things that we came up with when we were thinking about what were the traits and characteristics that we thought a good coach should have. And one that repeated itself continuously in the comments that came in was a great listener. And that is definitely a key component to coaching, and one that Nikki constantly is coaching me on, listening skills. But we do agree that coaches need to be empathetic. They need to be great listeners, and they need to be that expert, but not be the one who makes it about themselves, as was mentioned. Content is important. Although we will say that content is not as critical in the coaching process as is instructional strategies. If you're a tech coach at a high school, your background may have been social studies, and now you're working with somebody who's teaching, chemistry, and you really don't have experience in chemistry, but instructional strategies will transcend any content area, and that's what we focus on more so than content.
Yeah,
so,
good point. All right, so go ahead.
In Richland too, we are extremely lucky. We have since 2000 have invested lots of manpower in technology integration. We have a technology and learning coach at every one of our schools. So we have, and then we have centers where we do some sharing of tech coaches, but we have 36 technology and learning coaches in our 40 buildings. We have 4 district level technology integration specialists who work directly with me. They report with me. And their sole task is to help with professional development and work with the 36 technology coaches. And then there's me, and I just try to stay out of people's way the best I can. But having the 4 district level integration specialists able to work with a group of coaches really helps the process. A lot of what we talk about today, though, are things that you can do if you don't even have those tech coaches. It makes it a little bit easier for some of the coaching pieces, but you still can do a lot of what we talk about if you don't have all of these people and stuff. So, and we do meet with our tech coaches twice a month, half-day meetings. And then, of course, the TISs, or technology integration specialists, as well as myself, we go out and work with individual coaches and meet with them and coach them on the things they are wanting to improve upon. Now, our coaches are really responsible for 3 things in the building. Like everybody in education, nobody has just one task that they do. We all have multiple things we're responsible for. And our TLCs are responsible for 3 main areas. One, of course, is coaching. The other one is providing professional development as it relates to instructional technology. And the other one is technology management. And that piece can be, that's everything from issuing Chromebooks, inventory work orders, web page, PR director, managing the marquee sign out in front. If it plugs into a wall, that piece kind of falls under the responsibility of the technology learning coaches. It's not supposed to, but it does and stuff. So our TLCs really have these 3 areas that they focus on. And one of our challenges at the district level is how do we get them to spend most of their time on professional development and coaching, even though what feels like is taking the vast majority of their time is that tech piece. So we're having to work with them on balance. But those are the 3 things that our TLCs are responsible for. And the tech piece is very big and broad.
All right, so supporting technology integration, like Simon Sinek, we definitely start with our why. Why is it important for us to be supporting this technology integration? There is and has been a rapid growth in our district. We phased out our one-to-one back in 2011. We started that process. And our big why, I think now we can all agree, is this e-learning push that we are forced to kind of put out. And so I can tell you right now, technology and learning coaches have definitely been working hard to provide that support in this distance learning. And so we definitely have a big why of supporting this technology integration to ensure that it is successful here. So how do we support the technology integration? Chuck had mentioned earlier that we do have the monthly meetings. We have 2 of them. And Chuck had also mentioned that our role, technology integration specialists, meet with our TLCs at their schools. It does kind of vary. It could be just once a month. It could be twice a month. It could be once a week. It just depends on where the TLC is and their level of comfort, whether doing PD, if we're planning. So that one kind of varies from coach to coach. And then, so we do have professional learning opportunities in our monthly meetings, and that helps build that capacity both in the coaching and in professional learning, because we do want them to, there's a lot of technology out there, and as Chuck said, it's really about instructional strategies and the tools that are going to fit within that part. So we do a lot with supporting our TLCs through in those meetings, just building their capacity, because then they essentially bring that back to their schools to support with their teachers. So we have gone through 3 phases of getting our coaches to build the capacity in their coaching ability. They are teachers coming from the classroom, and so coaching does have to be something that is learned and that is practiced frequently to be able to help themselves build their own capacity. In phase 1, we did have 3 different cohorts. We did start with kind of our beginners, the innovators that wanted to start out with this coaching that was going to be very different from the role that they had before. We had some administrator support. The administrator at that school had to allow the TLC to come to these meetings, be off campus, and really provide the teachers that coaching support. And what it looked like was 2 days of training, full days, and then we continued that training for the year with 3 half-day meetings, and each TIS would work with those TLCs at their school. We did have them build a portfolio of their learning. We know that reflection is very important, and so we did allow that to be a part of that learning process. In the end, that's what they would turn in with the phase 1 of our coaching model.
And in phase 1, we use Les Foltis' book, Pure Coaching, and we picked that book purposefully because we knew we were moving one-to-one, or we had already moved one-to-one, and we knew that one technology coach would have a difficult time providing all of the support and things that were necessary. And Les's coaching model really focused on how to develop those best lessons with technology. And so the idea was, what we had at the beginning was, if a coach worked with a small number of teachers intentionally and in a very kind of an intense way on how to develop these model lessons incorporating technology, that they would have the capacity then to work with the other teachers on their team and their department, and that would help alleviate some of the burden of a tech coach at the very beginning of this one-to-one rollout. And I know that lots of districts are still rolling out, and so there's just so much out there, and it's so easy for teachers to get lost in the technology, that at the beginning we really tried to focus on that instructional side, which was a battle at the beginning, because it really, it's much easier to just go to the tool than it is to the instructional side. So the idea was they would build capacity in their school and basically have apprentices that would help them in this coaching process.
So phase 2, we'll just kind of briefly on this slide, because each slide that's upcoming kind of goes through more of it. But after phase 1, we realized that we really needed to figure out what model works best for Richland 2. And so we went through a variety of, and these are just a couple of examples. We did stick with some of Les Foltis' book and his strategies. Elena Aguilar has some great things that we pulled from, but we realized in phase 2 that we needed to come up with something that was going to be simplified for the TLCs to do a coaching cycle. And so we felt that the 3 most important coaching components were the planning, sitting down with the teacher, and as Chuck had talked about, lesson design. What is the ultimate goal of the lesson? What are the student skills that are going to be focused on? Kind of pulling in that TPAC model and talking with the teachers, trying to determine what their skill level was during that planning meeting. The next step in the cycle was the implementation. Going in while the teacher was implementing, really focusing on the student learning to determine and lead into the reflective part, which is essential to determine, did the lesson meet the goal that you guys had set out? And having that TLC in there, whether it's for the whole session or the 15 minutes, because they could provide specific feedback as the teacher was actually reflecting on that lesson.
And I think too, like as the director in instructional technology, the team, you know, they were all going out and reading all of these different coaching books, you know, and that's what you want. And then every time they would read a new book, they were bringing in new ideas, and then it was becoming confusing on who was doing what and what were the pieces we wanted to use, you know. And so that's when we decided that it was really important that we take the best of the best and develop a model that works for Richland too. You know, coaching is coaching, and it's really about the process. It's about the listening and the questioning and things. But everybody looked at things differently. Les focused a lot on lesson design, you know, and Elena, she focused a lot on a lot of the emotional things, you know. And when you're coaching, as much as you want to stick to just the content and the instructional strategies, you become a psychologist and you're helping these teachers through all kinds of different things. So yes, we needed to give them some skills on that. And then too, they were struggling with how to talk with teachers and how to deal with that. So we really looked at, you know, it went beyond just asking questions and listening. We knew we had to broaden that approach. So that's when we really pulled in our new model. And it's ever changing. We constantly evaluate it and make adjustments as necessary.
But it definitely has helped in communicating the correct message or the same message across, because you know, we do work with, I have, I think there's 12 or 13 teachers or TLCs that I specifically work with, but I can go work with another TLC and still be able to communicate that same message about coaching, because we all have the same the frame. So, oh, I am so hectic. I'm sorry. We have, Chuck, can you do this one?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So when we developed our new model, one of the things we did, since many of our coaches were still coaches that had gone through the initial phase 1 training, we realized that what we needed to do was to specialize or focus on areas that they needed the most. So we identified certain areas that we needed to focus on, and you know, and one was data. You know, a lot of times we were working with coaches who weren't really thinking about data, you know, or how to work with teachers utilizing data. So we went through on, you know, how to use map data, how to use classroom grades and formative assessments that teachers had. You know, we used Bright Bites and how to use the technology and learning data to help with what was happening in the school as far as it goes with professional development and coaching. So we really focused on data. We spent, they had the opportunity to come in and do a deep dive on data. And so we really looked at how we use multiple pieces of data to develop the big picture. We didn't want to focus on just map testing. We didn't want to focus on just test scores. We needed to pull data from all the different areas so that we could get a good picture of what was happening in classrooms with teachers, so that that would help us with the data. We had, you know, as we progressed through this, people retire or move and stuff. So we had new to coaching, and we had people who were new to coaching, the coaching position. And then we had people who, you know, had gone through the training originally, but didn't really embrace it the way they could have, or they just didn't implement it. And you can have all the training you want in coaching, but what makes a good coach is not training, it's practice, it's doing. And so we focused on doing that. We really looked at the kinds of conversations that they had with the teachers, because oftentimes they would just go in, quickly give them some suggestions and stuff. We call it drive-by coaching. We went through a phase where we talked about what was the difference between coaching and consulting. You know, if you just come up to a coach and say, hey, I really want to do something with video, but I don't know what, and they go, oh, you should use WeVideo, you know, and then they would say, I just coached a teacher on WeVideo. And it's more consulting than coaching. So we worked with them on how to have those real conversations. And then being a reflective coach, we started asking our coaches to record themselves while they were coaching, while they were working with teachers, while they were giving professional development, so that they could see what they were doing. You know, I love sports, and you know, and I will constantly refer to coaching to the types of things you see in the sporting world. And, you know, and in sports, they watch video to improve on their craft. And they watch to see what they did well and what they didn't do well. And we really encourage them to do that. We still do that to this day. And so, you know, like when I record these new meets now that we're doing, I reflect on the way I'm doing things and making adjustments. But using video to reflect on your coaching is really powerful. And I highly recommend that for anybody. Plus, it gives you, if you're working with a coach to help a coach, then it helps you. You don't have to be there all the time. You can allow them have that private conversation with their teacher and then watch that video and give feedback without having to be there. And that changes the dynamic of the group and stuff. So that's been very helpful.
Yeah, and I was going to say, Athena had a great platform that we did use for a while with them, because it allows us to upload the video because we can't always be there when they are coaching as much as we want them to, or leading professional development. But we can watch it. We can ask questions within the platform on that video. It timestamps it. We're able to go in and leave some, you know, like a statement about it, something that we liked, or it was just a great way for us to have asynchronous conversations through that video. And Athena was one that we had used for a while. So we did also in that same year, you know, there was a big deep dive into the coaching and getting the TLCs to build their capacity, but we also put in some choice with professional learning and how to look at, everybody had to do adult learning theory, you know, and what is that? What does it look like for teaching adults? Because it can be different from teaching students. So we did start with that, but then the teacher or TLCs had an opportunity to think, where do I need to either build my own capacity, or do I want to learn more about under the umbrella of professional learning? So we had some deep dives with these other topics with the TLCs, and it also gave them a chance to individually go out and do some research and dig in a little bit more to add in, how do I differentiate my PD for the teachers? You know, Chuck had talked about the data-driven planning for coaching and looking at different types of data, but how do we bring that data into planning for PD? So The TLCs were able to get some extra support in each of these just to make some improvements in their PD that they were providing for their teachers.
And I would highly recommend, if you're working with coaches and coaches are working with adults, that adult learning really become a priority in your professional learning with working with adults, because we do act differently than students do. And we're able to, as an adult in a classroom with students, you're able to say things and ask of students things that you just can't ask of adults because of, I mean, I can remember going in and doing professional development and having a teacher in the back of the room with their feet up on the table and a newspaper open because it was mandatory required PD that had nothing to do with what he did in the classroom and stuff. Or adults on their phones while you're doing professional learning. It's how do you react and things, and how do you prepare professional learning or coaching sessions with adults? You do it very differently than you do with students. Adults need to know why they're doing things, and they need to see the value in it. And if you don't get them to see that, you could spend lots of time with them and never really get anywhere because they're still fighting it. So focusing on adult learning and looking at those generations, because they are very different. We are dealing now with a lot of Gen Z teachers. Our young teachers coming in are Gen Z teachers, which is making me feel extremely old right now. But I'm in that baby boomer generation. But anyway, so they're very different, and we need to notice that because their attention spans are different, and we're seeing it with students, and our young adult teachers are the same way, and we need to be aware of those types of things as we're coaching.
All right. So phase 3 came in where we had a lot of new TLCs come in the last couple of years, and it was right after we had designed that 3 series, the coaching series, and our Big 8 professional learning. So as a team, we needed to figure out how do we get our TLCs, the new ones, build their capacity and have the same information, the same PD that we offered the veteran TLCs. How do we get that in there? Because we could definitely review. Everybody can learn a lot from reviewing the content that we did, but we really wanted to give the TLCs, our new ones, an opportunity to learn each of them. So we have what we call a focus group, and there's 2 of them that we have. We have our first years that just started this year that would meet once a month after our full TLC meeting. And then we have our second year. So they're in their kind of second phase and really just trying to fine tune and provide that extra support that they need as they finish out their second year of being a TLC. So we do meet, as I said, 1 time a month. We started in the beginning of the year, and then we really decided to do something a little bit different with our coaching planning. We did have them come in 1 full day to do an intense coaching session. We really wanted them to have a good, within 8 weeks, go through all of that training that we have provided our other TLCs, and then we finished it up with just having them come in half days for 3 days in that time. And you'll see we had broken down the topics for each of those sessions, knowing your why. Chuck had mentioned a while ago that that technology management part can really consume our TLC's time. So we had them base why did you become a TLC? Why did you become a technology and learning coach? And we did end up at the end framing it for them as they wrote out why they became a TLC, because let's go back to that. Let's go, read your why. When you are dug deep into your 20th work order for the day, look at that and say, you know what, I need to get into some classrooms because that's why I became a TLC. I want to be working with the teachers. So really building up that passion for their role in their school was critical for them to start out and see why coaching was important for them to learn, but to use as a method of working with their teachers. Because they do some lesson design, we did focus on SAMR and TPAC. That was something that we had a chance to work with our other TLCs with in the previous years, that we wanted to bring that up to them. Our second session really worked on lesson design. They brought in a couple of lessons from their teachers just to see what they're doing, and if they were going to do a coaching session with that teacher, areas that they might want to focus on. And we did have, Chuck, tell me, I don't remember exactly what his role is when Ben came in and really worked at that growth mindset for our TLCs.
Who?
What, Ben? When we had come
Yeah,
in
so
and work with.
one of the things we really wanted to focus on with our coaches, who oftentimes, as Nikki said and I've said, they get bogged down in the tech side of things, and they oftentimes lose sight of why they became a coach in the first place. And then two, they you know, they oftentimes don't realize their value at the school because they feel like they are doing menial work with this work orders and placing work orders and fixing devices and those sorts of things. And they weren't seeing their value. They're definitely seeing their value right now, though, because
Absolutely.
they are the most important people on a campus right now in our new learning environment. But so we actually brought in one of our teachers that I worked with when I was at the high school. Does sports psychology, and he's got a degree in sports psychology and stuff. And so he came in twice and worked with our coaches. We did a whole group with him at the beginning of this year, and then he came in when we got our focus groups and worked with them on understanding their role, and that, you know, that they are constantly growing and learning and stuff, and had them, you know, learn different things about that growth mindset and just understanding that, you know, not everybody is perfect at everything right away, that it takes work and stuff. And he emphasized that in his presentation, the way he asked for feedback, you know, and stuff. So bringing Ben Ehrlich in was a big help, and those who participated and worked with Ben loved it. I want to go back real quick. I couldn't get in on Nikki's talk, but one of the things we did, we recognized this year. Last year we had just we had a nice large group of new coaches, and having a meeting with them was good. This year we had a smaller group, but what we found was afternoons after our regular meeting was a bad time to try to do new learning. And so if you have the power and the ability, then you should not do new learning in the afternoons with adults, because it does not work and the value is not there. And we learned that this year, and that's when we really shifted mid-year, right in the middle of the year, and said no more afternoon meetings. We would just do half day. We did a full day, and then we did some half days, but that was a learning curve for us.
So yeah, that third session, we really went through that coaching cycle at each of the stages, focused on some listening strategies, some questioning strategies, and what that would look like as a coach. But we also asked them to brand themselves. When new TLCs go into a school, it could be at their specific school, but it could also be at a new school just within our district. So,
Nikki, what do you mean by branding yourself? I'm confused.
What we had them do is brand their role. What is a TLC, and how can I work with you as a teacher? So we gave some. It was wide open how they wanted to advertise themselves as a role as a technology and learning coach, and what their job is. A lot of the teachers are brand new to the school, and if they never had a TLC before, they needed to know how to best use the TLC at their school. So we did get them. They had a lot of fun with it. with some commercials and learning in the loo options just to get it out. But it was important because, and we ask that the TLCs do that every year because they do get new teachers. And how do you use me in the lesson design, with coaching, with and really goes into their job description of who they are.
Yeah, the real push for the branding was we needed the teachers to see them as instructional coaches,
Yes.
And not just as tech people. You know, one thing we've not mentioned is we actually changed their name at one point. They used to be called Instructional Technology Specialists, but that ITS, the ITS gave that IT term to their name, which led to them thinking that they were fix-it people. And that was not the perception we wanted. That's when we went with a technology and learning coach and stuff. And so, you know, we needed that branding to be a critical way for them to let their teachers know that, hey, I can help you with minimal tech support, but that's what we have technicians for. What you really need me for is instructional planning. It's how to make better lessons for your kids, how to engage your kids more with the use of technology, you know, and how to manage your classroom with technology and all of these kinds of things. It's not about, I'm going to come and fix your smart board or your Chromebook issues and things like that. They do that, but that was not their primary purpose.
Right. And I think each year going from now on is them creating something new, because each year we do get new teachers, and it just allows those new ones, and even the ones that have been there for a while and may forget or just needed that little reminder for them to say, hey, I am here. This is what my role is. When can I come help you? Not an if you need me, when can I come help you? So in that last session, because it is so critical, we did ask them to practice with some of their teachers at their schools with the coaching cycle and some listening and questioning. But we devoted that last session for practicing, where they got with another person, another coach, and went through a coaching cycle. They had an issue. They wanted the other TLC to coach them through it. They recorded it just so then they can go back and be that reflective coach and do that reflecting on themselves of what they can do to make their improvements and fill in some gaps. So that was pretty vital for that part, for the TLCs just to have practice. The team, the TIS and Chuck, we walked around, so then we were able to observe and see and also provide that feedback for them as they were going through that coaching process. Anything more on this one, Chuck?
Nope.
So as I had mentioned before, each of our TLCs are at different levels. They might be great at the coaching part, but just need some support maybe for PD. So each of them have some sort of different plans. And we have come into situations where we've had to do more of a direct coaching. And I think that that's pretty common, especially in our first year, because our TLCs just don't know what they're supposed to be doing. They're pretty overwhelmed. But there are some situations that we've come up with that we've also had to develop some improvement plans just so then they are reaching the goals and that vision of what the TLC or the administrators want. So an example of direct coaching was creating an activity log. I'm just going to go through, there we go. And then we just kind of go through the tasks, your responsibilities. So initially what the TLC had done was just gone through a specific day and logged everything that was done. Looking at that management time, TLCs have to be flexible because things come up. And so they have to be able to stop what they're doing sometimes and then go. And so we were able to really analyze what the tasks were that the TLC was doing so then we can better manage the time. We did some monthly accountability reports based on what the admin or what we were looking for with the TLC. And this particular TIS used Elena Aguilar's monthly report that she found to be valuable in helping with this particular TLC. When creating these development or these improvement plans, we do use the SMART goals. We base it off of the TLC job description. And based on, we have a meeting with the admin. It could be just the principal, it could be the API, whoever is in charge of or over the TLC, and what the vision is and what the school's needs are, and then create those SMART goals so then we are reaching the potential with that TLC at the schools.
One of the things we learned is that every TLC is at a different level, and every administrator has different expectations of TLCs. I know somebody asked a question earlier in the Q&A about our TLCs being a full-time position. And our TLCs, that is their job. They are full-time technology and learning coaches. We are very fortunate in our district to have that. And they are assigned, they work at a school, they are hired by the principal. So they work, as I always say, they work at the pleasure of their principal and stuff. We are the ones who provide them with the professional development and support them. And we work in cooperation with the schools to help the schools meet their goals and things. And oftentimes we will get calls from the principal where they would like to see their technology and learning coach do a little bit more. And that's when we will come in and work with them and help them and work and achieve the goals that the principal has. And at some point in time, most principals have contacted us about trying to help their TLCs get to a goal that they want them to have. And oftentimes it's 90% of the times it's just a miscommunication between what's the perception of what they're doing. And so we do work with them on that. But our technology and learning coaches are expected to do a lot. And so when we do the direct coaching, it's really about teaching them the strategies and things that maybe they don't know specifically. So like most of our coaching, of course, is, Q&A, asking them to come up with solutions and trying to guide them to the path that they need to go in their building. But when we get to the direct coaching, just like direct coaching with a teacher on things, it's usually because the skill set is not there at this point in time. It's not because they're not good. They may be very good in lots of different areas, but maybe weak in some other areas. And so that's the kinds of things that we might do some direct coaching and stuff. And so that becomes more of a, here are some things that you need to work on, so please work on these specific things. We do that so seldom with TLCs and things, but it comes up sometimes, just like it does with teachers. And it's usually not, like I said, it's never because they're bad or awful coaches. It's usually they're just weak in an area that they just need some help on.
And that's where the SMART goals really did help us to determine what we wanted them to be able to accomplish. So, and this is just an example, engage in continuous learning to deepen professional knowledge. So we set out some goals that are specific of when they were going to do it. They really wanted to become Google certified. And so that's just an example of one of the improvement plans that our TLC had. So our return on investment, we do use Bright Bites surveys to be able to see where we are in our the path of one-to-one, and we have gone up. We're always happy when the results prove that our work is great. Well, this past year, yes. You know what? We were supposed to maybe change that one out, but we also use this, the classroom, using the 4 C's. This is where our focus is with our coaches and the teachers. And so we can use this, but to provide for next year what things we need to work on with our TLCs. So they're bringing it back in with our teachers in that.
Yeah. With our Bright Bites data, we get information that obviously looks at the 4 C's, SAMR, as well now as the ISTE standards and where we align with those things in the classroom. And utilizing that data is key for us, at least at the district level. It's key for us. How much the coaches are embracing the data might be a totally different story, but we feel that this data is vital for coaches to be able to make the plans that they need for their building. And so, but working from a consistent model of using TPAC to develop lessons, using SAMR to evaluate the lessons that you're doing, and always taking into account the ISTE standards so that you are looking at the expectations of what students should be producing in a classroom. And Bright Bites gives us that data. And so that's been very helpful for us.
All right. We have definitely learned some lessons doing this.
Yeah. We've learned that we constantly need to change to meet the needs of our TLCs. We also know that every TLC is always at a different level. You know, I can remember one TLC we were doing coaching PD, and they said we've done this every year for 3 years and stuff, and it's like, so that's when we went to focus groups. You know, this year we learned that we can't do focus sessions in the afternoon throughout the course of the year. You know, we needed to do an intense training session, but then we didn't do that at the beginning of the year. We kind of did it in the middle of the year, and we realized that next year we need to do that at the beginning of the year and stuff. So I think our model for coaching is pretty solid right now. We are constantly learning new things, but we are focusing really right now on questioning techniques, listening strategies, how to be an active listener and ask the right kinds of questions. We are definitely focusing on the 3 areas of coaching, and that the planning, the implementation, and the reflection piece. In order for a coaching cycle to happen, those 3 things need to occur. And stuff. We're constantly developing expectations of the TLCs. At one point in time, we were like saying you should have X number of coaching sessions per quarter and things, and we found that didn't do anything because angst and anxiety, which led to less coaching. And so, you know, now we've kind of gone a different approach with how we're working with them on those things. But as you're working with coaches, no coach can do a great job coaching if they do not go into classrooms and see what's happening in the buildings. We're lucky to have coaches who have a full-time job of coaching, but that tech piece oftentimes consumes their time and keeps them out of the classroom. So the more your coaches are in the classroom, the easier it is for them to work. Because what happens for us is as coaches stay out of the classroom longer, you lose the connection to the classroom. You know, like I have been out of the classroom for a long time now. So, you know, in order for me to understand what's happening, I have to go see classrooms. I can no longer say, when I was teaching, this is what I did. Because when I was teaching, things were different. And so, you know, now I can talk about things I'm seeing in the classroom, things that I see in other schools, things I see in the school that of somebody I'm working with. And those things are helping us. So that visitation in classrooms are key. Any other big lessons, Nikki?
No, I think that was, you know, for us, we just reflect and we modify it at that point, or we just remember when we start planning out for the next year, what worked, what didn't work, what do we have to change? Because, you know, we're going to have to do this again. We're going to have some new TLCs coming in next year. So it is, like Chuck said, we learned that the coaching needs to happen in the beginning of the year and that. So just be reflective in what you're doing as well as you're supporting the TLC or your coaches.
All right, can you all hear me okay? I know my audio has been a little
We got you, Tia.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing your screen. Thank you guys so much. That was so informative, especially to hear it from your point of view with instructing tech coaches. I love the idea of branding the tech coaching role as well, especially because we know that the tech coach role can be named so many different things throughout districts. So really branding what it's meant to do with instruction rather than technology. We have some great questions for the audience. So we have about 15 minutes to go through those. Sean Coffrin asks, there are so many coaching models to follow. Thank you for sharing the text you use as the research behind your practice. Which coaching models or trainings do you suggest? Are there specific models you have found to be more effective or efficient?
So we were in that boat as well. We went from Les Boltis, Elena Aguilar, variety. We just had to develop our own. We had to say, how do we keep this as simple as possible with the planning, the implementation, and the reflection. And then that way we had that common language because it did become hard for us to figure out, do we use this one? Do we use this one? And it's still ever changing. And I think Chuck, you had mentioned that before, that there are components that we might see some recent research that we want to embed into it, but we developed our model and we just bring in those strategies that we feel were the best ones that work for our TLCs and our teachers.
Awesome. Delrose Atkinson says, I would argue that students need the same considerations as well. As we model explaining the why of PD learning goals, teachers can learn how to explain the why of learning goals with students. Not really a question,
Yes.
but any feedback?
I love Simon Sinek's Start With Why, and I really do believe that it fits into a lot of other things that we talk about when you talk about change happening in classrooms or in a school, that you, in order for change or success to really happen with anything you're trying to implement, people have to understand why you're doing it. And if they don't understand the why, then they are less likely to buy into your vision. And if they don't see your vision, then you're going to get lots of resistance. And then when you get too much resistance on things, you become tired of fighting the fight and you abandon it. And so starting with that why, in order to get people to buy into your vision, it really does help. And so doing that with students is just as critical as it is working with adults. I mean, my daughter was here doing her e-learning, and she's like, why do I have to do this kind of work? This is not what we were doing in the classroom. And we had to talk about why it's different and stuff, but understanding that why is critical.
Totally agree. I think it doesn't just stop from tech coaching to teachers. It's a full circle and it keeps going both ways. Chad Fisher asks, what do you consider a coaching style, or sorry, a coaching cycle?
I think that just the 3 phases that we have, what we believe as at least the start. Coaching or sitting down with the teacher to plan out, figure out what the goals are with that whole planning part. That implementation, being in there is critical, just because, as Chuck said, seeing what's happening in the classrooms, you're able to provide feedback, be able to see what the needs are to make those next steps. And it creates a better reflection with the teacher in the end, because you can give specific feedback, you can provide those student examples to whether or not that what you set out to do in that goal was achieved or not. I think that could the teacher during the planning determine that they don't know the tool? There would probably be an extra step in that planning right before the implementation of learning how to do it. So I think for us, the 3 steps are that, and it just depends on what the teacher's needs are that might have something more built in there based on their needs.
Yeah, it's interesting. We started out where our main goal was instructional technology and building those lessons and doing those lessons designs. And a lot of what we're seeing now is that teachers are doing a lot. I mean, our tech coaches are working a lot on classroom management, how to, because that's a technology piece, because technology oftentimes will show your weakness in classroom management more so than anything else. So we do spend a lot of time with that. And of course, Dyknow has helped us greatly with that. It's a free plug, by the way. So it's a huge aid, because when teachers are afraid of kids on devices, then the technology does not get implemented. When that doesn't happen, then those good instructional strategies that you spent all that time planning just doesn't work. So we have spent a lot of time lately on just classroom management, even more so than some lesson designs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's an essential part, especially when the classroom isn't physically in front of the teacher. 2 more questions before we wrap this up. So Cassidy Winslow asks, could you give an example of a SMART goal?
Well, I had the couple on that slide. You know, when we were looking at, the goal was to set out to do more of their own personal learning, and what does that look like? Because the day does get consumed, whether it's PD, walking in the classroom. So a lot of times their own personal professional learning was put off to the side. So one of those goals did happen to be that, you know, setting out whatever that job description had said. And then we did, by March, I will have or I will have attained the Google Certified Educator certificate. And so we kind of put in some steps in between how we're going to measure that you are working towards it, that you are meeting that, but by the time March came on. So that's kind of where we were, at least with that one example.
Awesome. Last question. Karin Haas asks, do your coaches just pop in during instructional time, or do they set up times with teachers?
Both.
Yeah, both.
Chuck talked about that, the classroom visits, just popping in to get, build relationships with the teachers, just to see, like, if I were working with second grade the following week, I want to go in there. What is it that they're working on right now that then I can bring some ideas to them if I'm leading a PD that's specific to that grade level and the skills that they're working on. So we do have them popping in, as well as, hey, can you come in during this time and help? Some of our TLCs still go in and lead some training with the students. They'll lead whether it's WeVideo or the voice thread, whatever the tool is, they'll actually lead that with the teacher co-teaching. So I think it varies.
Yeah, and we encourage them to go into classrooms often, so that if they're in there enough, then the teachers don't look at them as coming in observing. They look at them as coming in as support, because what we don't want is them looking at our coaches as evaluators, that they are coaches. And so to make them comfortable, the more often TLCs are popping into classrooms, the more comfortable teachers are when they do. And the easier it is for kids as well. The students, you know, oftentimes if you're walking in and it's a new person coming in, it's a kind of a slight disruption. So the more they're doing it, the more comfortable the students are as well.
This has been super great. And I'm going to ask one more final question that no one in the audience has asked so far, but I've been curious ever since. Nikki, what kind of dog do you have over there?
Hey, can I listen? So before, I'll give you background. I don't know what kind of dog it really is. A mixture of a lot of them. So this is what the life had become, not just this coronavirus, and that our septic tank kind of went, and so we have to get new floors. So they in a pod when we were just starting our webinar. They brought in the pod, so that was one distraction, along with Richland, who was barking. And then the septic guy came to want to go and pump it, and I had no clue. So that was all of the interruptions, and I am so sorry. There was no phone call. No, I had no clue that this was going to be happening, but it happened all at the same time.
Yeah, she called me at 8 till and says, I hope I'll be there on time.
It's all good. It's all good. It's the world we're living in right now. I had meat, so dinner for the next few weeks delivered to my door. That was the doorbell. So just real life happening right in front of everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody. So yes, it was a little bit chaotic, but I had a blast, and I appreciate you guys allowing us to come in today.
We appreciate you joining us. Thank you for such a great presentation. I assume we'll be able to share your slide deck with everyone. People have been asking, so we'll share that with everyone after the conference, as well as the full recording.
And we'll add in the SMART goal and stuff that we didn't do in the presentation, so they'll have access to that.
All those links are accessible, so you guys can use whatever you need and tweak it.